Hello everyone and welcome back to this channel. If you are getting ready to take the Microsoft SC-200 exam, you are at the right place. So over the next few minutes, we are diving deep with the question and answer into how we can prepare for SC-200 certification. My name is Vimal Singh and let's buckle up because this is not just another exam. It's a step towards becoming a key player in securing the modern digital world. So let's get started. So before jumping towards the question and answer, let's explore the objective domain, what we are getting for SC-200. In SC-200, if you can see, it has been divided in four objective domain. The first one is manage a security operation environment, and we're expecting 20 to 25% of question from here. After that, we have configure protection and detection, and 15 to 20% question we are expecting from here. Then manage incident response, 25 to 30% question from the incident response. And finally, manage security threats, 15 to 20% of question from here. So almost equal weight we have on all the objective domain. So let's get started with the question and answer. So the first question that you can see at this place, here we are getting you have a Microsoft 365 E5 subscription. You are evaluating Microsoft Defender for endpoint. You need to minimize how long Defender for endpoint data is retained and what is the minimum data retention period that you can configure. As we know, the data retention, whenever you are using Defender for endpoint service, the data store is being provided and it comes with the limitation in terms of retention. So if I take the reference from Microsoft, this is the place where you can see how the data stores are being assigned and being an administrator from where you can fetch those information. Just after that, if you will see what Microsoft document says about their data retention policy. So if you can see, if I talk about Windows Defender for endpoint, by default, the data is designed to be retained for 180 days. However, we are getting this option to set it. And if you can see at this place, this can be from 1 month to 6 months. If you see the ask is minimum data retention. So if it is 1 month, so the right answer should be 30 days. So let's see what we are getting as right answer, 30 days. Okay, now the next question is, you have an Azure subscription that contains following resources like a virtual machine named VM1, a storage account named storage1, and an Azure app service named app1. So which resource can be protected by using Microsoft Defender for Cloud? Now, if you talk about Defender for Cloud, it's a cloud-based service, and you can say Defender service for the cloud resources, which protects your infrastructure as a service, platform as a service. And not only this, you can extend the protection for your hybrid and multi-cloud as well. To explore what it supports, you just need to go to the settings of the Defender for Cloud and you can explore for the Defender plans. Under the Defender plan, you will have clear visibility of what it protects. So if you see, there are servers will be presented in our Azure as a virtual machine. You do have app service as well as storage, database, and many more. Now, if I look what option we are getting as an answer, so there you can see we have resource, virtual machine, a storage account, and Azure app. There are three things. As answer, VM1 and app1 definitely not, because we just saw Defender for Cloud protects even storage. So VM1 and storage, no. VM1, no. If I see the fourth option where we have virtual machine, storage, and app1, so that sounds like a right answer. But let's see what document says. Here it says Defender for Cloud provides security alerts and advanced threat, that is fine, and protection for virtual machine, Azure SQL database, container, web app, your network, and more. So whatever the question is asking, it falls under the Defender for Cloud, and all this given resource will be protected. So answer should be fourth one. Let's see what is the right answer. That's the right answer. Now coming to the next question. Here the question asks, you have an Azure storage account named storage1 and that contains the following resources. That storage account has a blob container, a file share named share1, a queue named queue1, and a table named table1. Now the ask is, you enable Microsoft Defender for Cloud for storage 1. Now, which resources will get protected? So whenever you enable Defender for Cloud for storage, does it protect all storage types or only a specific? So if I'll go and start exploring, that's my storage. Again, the complete storage. Here we do not get option to declare what type of storage will get protected, like container or file or queue or the table, right? So we need to explore Microsoft document. If I talk about Microsoft document, here we got clear picture what it stores. So Defender for Cloud includes Microsoft Defender for Storage, which is an Azure native layer of security intelligence that detects unusual. Okay, that's fine. And the Defender for Storage continually analyze the telemetry stream generated by the Azure Blob Storage and Azure File Services, but not queues and table. This is what Microsoft official document says. So now we got the answer. We have 4, means all services, storage services, but it's about the Defender for Cloud, what it is going to protect. So only 2, your container and the file share. So what should be the right answer? The container and share 1. That's the name, container 1 and share 1. Now the next question that you can see, you have the following cloud environments: an Azure subscription that uses Microsoft Defender for Cloud, Microsoft 365 tenant, you have AWS and GCP. Now the ask is what? You need to ensure that you can use Defender for Cloud to perform cloud security posture management for the environment. Which environment will require that a connector be deployed? So definitely, because Defender for Cloud is Microsoft managed service for their infrastructure and platform as a service. So the Microsoft infrastructure and platform will get protected automatically without any additional configuration. Definitely, you have to do some configuration, onboarding and activating the service. But when it comes to the non-Microsoft, you need to integrate with the help of their connectors. So here in this scenario, we have 2 non-Microsoft cloud service, AWS and GCP. So definitely we should have the connector for this. So even I'll go and start exploring this service. From the reference, as you can see, Microsoft Defender supports that AWS and Google Cloud. Along with this too, we do have other options, but as per our question, we need to focus here. Now, if I read the Microsoft official, you can say statements from their documents or the learn, it says Defender for Cloud can protect hybrid workload, including on-premises and AWS and GCP, but a connector must be deployed for AWS and GCP. So the right answer should be AWS and GCP. Now, the next question is, you are configuring a new Microsoft Sentinel environment. Which item are required to create a Microsoft Sentinel workspace? That's a very simple question. So we have to create a Sentinel environment. As we know, it's a SIEM and SOAR service. It is designed to collect the information, logs from the different sources. So once it collects the log from different sources, where it is going to store? The first thing should be a stored place where it can store. So if I'll come to this place inside the Sentinel, it must have the data store, or you can say the workspace where it is going to put the data. So if we'll go to the Sentinel, go to the settings, there you will see. And if you're at the beginning, the first thing you need to define is workspace, or you can say the place where it can store. So you must have log analytics workspace. Top of it, you can enable Sentinel. Now, if I'll explore the Microsoft documents, here it says an Azure storage account is not required for the configuration of Microsoft Sentinel, a Microsoft intratenant, and a log analytics workspace. That is something required, or you must have an Azure subscription, because without subscription, you cannot create this service. So that 3 thing is required: intratenant, log analytics workspace, and a storage subscription. Azure subscription, not a storage. Now, if I look and try to match with the answer, what we are getting in the answer. So we have a Microsoft 365 subscription, log analytics workspace. Okay, that's not 365 is not required. 365 subscription and Azure storage account, Azure storage monitor account. No. Azure subscription, Microsoft intratenant, and log analytics workspace. That seems like a correct answer. So here we go. subscription, Microsoft Enter Tenant, and Log Analytics Workspace. Okay, so the next question is, you manage multiple Azure subscription that are linked to different Microsoft Enter tenants. Each subscription hosts a Microsoft Sentinel workspace, and the subscription are distributed across multiple Azure regions. Too many things are there: multiple regions, multiple workspace, multiple Enter tenants. And the requirement is what? You need to monitor incidents from all the Microsoft Sentinel workspace by using a community workbook. That's very tricky. If it has only this particular ask, then your answer could be different. But they integrated something called workbook. In that case, answer would be the different. So let's compare it with the given options. So here the first option is an Azure AD B2C tenant, an Azure storage account, Azure firewall rules, and Lighthouse. Definitely logically, as we know the exam tips, always we need to exclude our, you can say, non-relevant options. So here in this seems like more relevant. But anyway, let's explore. So Microsoft recommends if you have resources in different tenant and you want to manage it from one centralized place. So we do get option and the service called Lighthouse. So with the help of Lighthouse, we can integrate multiple tenants, and depends on role and the, you can say, permissions, how you're going to use this Lighthouse to connect your resources. But yes, this is possible. With the help of Lighthouse, we can connect the resources from the different tenant. Even if I'll go and explore the Microsoft, you can say, references documents, where it clearly says Azure Lighthouse enables multi-tenant management with a scalability, higher automation, and enhanced governance across the resources. So very straightforward. The answer should be Azure Lighthouse. Now, the next question is, you have an Azure subscription and you need to deploy Microsoft Sentinel. What should you create first? As we just talked, we need definitely a subscription. We need a workspace. I mean, and when I say workspace, is a Sentinel, and we also need some place where we can store all the collected log. So for that, we need Log Analytics Workspace. That is the place where Sentinel is going to store their logs. So from the given answer, if I can see the Azure a Log Analytics Workspace is there. So that's a very simple question, but still let's go and explore it. So if I explore the Microsoft document and prerequisite for Sentinel, it clearly mentioned the Log Analytics Workspace is required, because it doesn't have any subscription option in the answer list. So definitely I'll not think about it. I'll think which falls under the prerequisite list. So this falls under the prerequisite list. So my answer should be Log Analytics Workspace. Now, even I'll take the Microsoft Learn document reference. So here it says Microsoft Sentinel uses Log Analytics Workspace for storing event data. So it's very simple and straightforward. Answer is going to be Log Analytics Workspace. Okay. So the next question is, your on-premises network contains multiple devices that provide logs in a common event format. You have an Azure subscription and a Microsoft Sentinel workspace named Workspace 1. You need to ingest the log from the devices into Workspace 1. What should you do first? This is very important and interesting question. To understand this, let's come to this place and see there are two scenarios. Either you have just one standalone server, from there you want to collect the log, or you have multiple servers, from there you want to collect the log. So if I take the example of the first scenario where we have just one server, so you can consider that's going to be log source. So it can be Linux VM in your environment that produce syslog messages, and these messages are collected by the local syslog daemon, and that is on TCP or UDP port. So it uses TCP or UDP 514 port to collect this log. The local syslog daemon, you can say, collects the log messages on TCP port as we discussed, and then sends these logs to the Azure monitor agent. And that is going to be in a two-way, depending on how and what version of Azure monitoring agent you have configured. So if you are using Azure monitoring agent version 1.28 and above, so it will receive log on TCP port 28330. And the earlier versions were designed to receive the log using Unix domain socket, right? So it depends. Now it is going to send this entire log with TCP 443 to the sys log that you have configured within your Sentinel, you can say workspace. Now, in the second scenario that you can see, if you have multiple instances, so in that case, we have to create a dedicated log forwarder who will talk to the Sentinel services and provide the logs to them. So here in this scenario, there you will not have any local syslog daemon. You will have dedicated machine where you are going to install the syslog daemon, and that will collect the log from the connected sources and forward it to the Sentinel. So that's the architecture. Now, if I come back and see the requirement, as we discussed, information is in common event format, that is from on-premises. So what would be the answer? Let's check the answer options. So add the security event via legacy agent data connector in Microsoft Sentinel, add the syslog data connector in a Microsoft Sentinel, and deploy a computer that runs Linux. Now let's explore, before coming to the final result, let's explore what Microsoft document says and what they suggest. So it says to ingest syslog and CF logs into Microsoft Sentinel, particularly from device and appliances onto which you cannot install the log analytics agent directly, you must designate and configure a Linux machine that will collect the log from your devices and forward them to Microsoft Sentinel workspace, which we just discussed through the diagram. So the right answer is going to be deploy a computer that runs Linux. Now, the next question is, you are implementing Microsoft Sentinel. You add a Microsoft Enter ID protection data connected to Microsoft Sentinel. So this is one of the Enter ID service that helps you to protect your identity from sign-in risk and user risk. You need to verify whether data is ingested from the connector or not. Which table should you query? So now let's go to Microsoft Sentinel workspace, and that is the place where Microsoft Sentinel ingests their data. It's basically log analytics workspace, and inside the log analytics workspace you will find the tables and you will have the complete list of table. If I talk about Microsoft Enter ID protection service, their logs are basically getting stored inside the security alerts, and Microsoft has already informed with their documents. So if I'll come and explore that document, it says when you add Microsoft Enter ID data connector in Microsoft Sentinel, it stores ingest data to the security alert table. That's great. It's very straightforward question. So the right answer is going to be security alert. Now, the next question is, you have a Microsoft Sentinel workspace. You plan to deploy a syslog data connector in the Microsoft Sentinel. It's a syslog data connector. You download an agent to a computer that runs Linux. You need to onboard the agent to Microsoft Sentinel. Which information do you need? So answer is in the Azure subscription ID and the name of the Microsoft Sentinel workspace. This is what you need. Or Azure subscription ID and the workspace primary key, or the Microsoft Sentinel workspace ID and the workspace secondary key, or the name of the Microsoft Sentinel workspace and the credentials of the user assigned the Microsoft Sentinel reader role. Okay, let's try to understand once again this question. The question is asking you, you have to deploy a syslog connector, and a few seconds ago we just checked it out how we are going to install and fetch the information from the, you can say, Linux servers. There we need to install Azure monitoring agent, and with the help of that we can fetch the data and store it into the Sentinel. So here if you see, this is the approach how we are going to install the agent. So you can download the agent and try to install it on the server. This is going to be a monitoring agent, or you can say log analytics agent. Now on the client side, the moment you will start initiating the installation of this downloaded agent, your experience would be like this. There, the client, the agent will ask, provide me the workspace ID and the workspace key. So you must provide that workspace ID and key to establish the connection. Now you have two keys, primary and secondary, it depends. So now if I'll go back and check my answer, here it says the Microsoft Sentinel workspace ID and the workspace secondary key. Because we do not have any matching with the primary key. As you can see here, it is asking primary key, but that's the other point is subscription ID. So this is not going to be correct. We can connect either with the primary and secondary. Any of the key can help you to connect. The sequence would be we need to provide the workspace ID and then primary or secondary key. So that looks like more relevant and more logical. Let's explore the statement what Microsoft says. So syslog is an event logging protocol that is common to Linux. So you can use the syslog daemon built in Linux devices or appliances to collect the local event to the type of specify you have, specify and have it send those event Microsoft Sentinel using log analytics agent for the Linux. And while configuring that agent, what do you need to provide? Workspace ID, primary or secondary key. Because my answer contains the secondary key, so the answer should be the third one. Let's see. Yes, that's the correct one. Now, the next question is, you have an Azure subscription that contains a Microsoft Sentinel workspace deployed to West US Azure region. You have the following Azure virtual machines. You can see we have VM1, VM2, VM3 and VM4. VM1 runs server to 2022, VM2 has 2019, VM3 has 10 and VM4 has 11. This is running in West US, this is running in East US, this is in West US, this is in East US. So it's two different region, I can say, East West, that's fine. Now the ask is what? You deploy Windows security event via the Azure monitoring agent data connector to the Microsoft Sentinel workspace. From which virtual machines can you collect events? Okay. Now it's a very tricky question. So to understand, let's see if I'm in a Sentinel and if I have to collect the data from the different resources through the Azure monitoring agent. So we do have connector called custom logs via AMA, and we are going to use this connector to fetch the information and put it into the Sentinel. Now, if I'll explore the statement, what Microsoft says, but before going there, you can see that information comes with the help of data collector rule. And this is how the data collector rule you're going to create under Azure Monitor Service, which allow you to define what information or the log that you would like to collect from the target systems, whatever operating system you have from there. So once you defined it, actually this service is going to collect the information from all the server, not directly your Sentinel. Once it is collected to that place, then your Sentinel will get it from their connector. So if I talk about this service, means Azure monitoring agent, this service is not limited to work within the region. It is designed to work with the different region as well. And if you read this statement, it says Windows security events via the AMA data connector can ingest security event from any Windows Azure virtual machine, regardless of whether it runs Windows Server or Windows Client, and regardless of the region to which it is deployed. Now it answers the question. So all the VM will work at this place, and the answer should be VM1, VM2, VM3 and VM4. Now, the next question is, you have a Microsoft Sentinel workspace. You need to enable user and entity behavior analytics in Microsoft Sentinel. Which two data source support the use of UEBA? Each correct answer presents a complete solution. Definitely, for that we must remember where we get this setting and what are the options we are getting. So you can see if you go to the Sentinel, under the setting you will get something called UEBA option. Once you go and try to configure it, you will get, while configuring, you will get this option where it clearly says Azure activity and security events are required. Definitely it has more than that, but our answer doesn't contain those. It has only these two. So we will have these two right answer. So if I'll go and read the Microsoft document, it says on the entity behavior setting page, you can see what is being supported and data source will also get listed. And we just saw the Azure activity and security events are there. So that is going to be the right answer for the question. Now, the next question is, you have a Microsoft 365 E5 subscription that uses Microsoft SharePoint Online. You need to be notified if user download a large number of documents from SharePoint Online during the month before the user account was deleted. So it's more like internal threat management, or you can say insider threat protection. So you might have users, those who are trying to exfilter the data while serving their notice period. So Microsoft offers some services for that, and that service is known as insider risk management. And you can see this is something workflow that you are getting. So with the help of Microsoft Purview, you can configure this insider risk management policies. You can go and enable the setting. The policy will get created and it will start monitoring the user's activity. You can also set the scope that from which date you will start monitoring and how long this monitoring will keep continuing. And if it detects, you also have the option where you can define the, you can say, resources that has to be monitored, like sending it to the external domain, or maybe making a hard copy of your any document, or maybe putting it on pen drive. All this activity can be monitored. And if it detects something unusual, you can definitely generate an alert. In fact, you can create a case. So that's going to be workflow, insider risk management. So as per the ask, it says before deleting that user account, whatever they have done, how we are going to explore it. So if you see the options, Microsoft Defender for cloud apps, file policy, Microsoft Defender for Office 365 alert policy, Microsoft Purview insider risk management policy, or Microsoft Entra governance access review. So let's explore the document, what it says. So it says a Microsoft Purview insider risk management policy based on the data theft by departing users template uses exfiltration indicators for risk scoring and focuses on detection and alert in this risk area. This clearly says this is going to be insider risk management policy. So the right answer is Microsoft Purview insider risk management policy. Okay, so the next question is, you have a Microsoft 365 E5 subscription that contains five Microsoft SharePoint online sites, and you apply data loss prevention policies to the SharePoint online sites. Now you need to review the DLP alerts. Which two portal can you use? And each correct answer presents a complete solution. So you have more than one. Now it's a very simple question. The other statements are just boundary. The requirement is which two portal you can use to monitor DLP alerts. That's very straightforward. So let's see, we are at the Microsoft Purview, and there you can see we are getting DLP alerts. We are at the data loss prevention section and we have dedicated alert section. So we can check all the alerts related to DLP from here. We also have another portal, which is Microsoft Defender 365, and the DLP alerts can also be visible from this XDR solution. So we got two different places from where we can check the alerts. Now, if I see what Microsoft document says, so it clearly says you create DLP policy in the Microsoft Purview compliance portal. DLP alerts can also be viewed in the same portal by selecting the data loss prevention and alert. And the Microsoft Defender portal also combines the protection, detection, investigation, resources, email, collaboration, identity, device, and cloud app, including the DLP alerts. So it's very simple. The answer should be Microsoft Purview compliance portal and Microsoft Defender portal. Okay, the next question is, you have a Microsoft 365 E5 subscription that contains a user named user1 and a Microsoft SharePoint online site named site1. User1 leaves the company and the user's account is deleted. You need to identify whether user1 downloaded files from site1 during the 30 days before the account was deleted. Which type of policy should you create? Okay, so the answer should be insider risk. A few minutes ago, we talked about it. It's a part of internal threat because that user belongs to your domain, and they might have done some exfiltration of your data. So clearly they're asking for the SharePoint online site, and we have to check data is being used, data got used by that user or not, right? Downloads. So yes, we do get option inside the insider risk management setting, and as you can see, we can define that um, how long you want to monitor the user's activity, and you can also even set that even the user leaves the organization after that, you can keep monitoring the user's activity. So we can set that, and you can see there is 30 days already defined at this place. So if I'll go and explore the Microsoft document, it says insider risk policy. uh, Identify which user are in a scope and which type of risk indicators are configured for the alerts. So again, both the you can say diagram or this statement proves it is part of insider risk policy. So it should be a Microsoft Purview insider risk policy. Okay, the next question is, you have a hybrid Microsoft Entra tenant and a Microsoft 365 E5 subscription. Okay, you need to review all changes made to the Active Directory enterprise admin groups during the last 14 days. What we should use? It says the Microsoft Entra ID Provisioning Analysis Workbook, or the Microsoft Entra ID Sensitive Operation Report Workbook, or the Microsoft Defender for Cloud Apps, Cloud Discovery User Pages, or the Microsoft Defender for Identity Modifications to Sensitive Group Reports. Okay, let's explore. And if I try to explore it with the help of this Microsoft Defender for Identity, so I logged into the XDR portal, and from there I went to the setting. Under the setting, I found something called report management, and there I can see we are getting modification to the sensitive group is the option that we can use to fetch those information. And also, if I try to explore the Microsoft statement from the Microsoft Learn document, it says the Defender for Identity Modifications to sensitive group report list every time a modification is made to sensitive groups such as admin or manually tagged accounts or the groups. That's great. So our answer is going to be straightforward. This one, which includes modification to sensitive group report. Now, the next one is, you have a hybrid Microsoft Entra tenant and a Microsoft 365 E5 subscription. You need to identify any high risk user that have performed a password reset during the last 14 days. What we should do? Now, to do that, if you come to identity protection section, under that, if you see the settings, you are getting this option. There are two ways to explore it. Either we can go and explore direct report from here, but if you have on premises and their activity also want to monitor, so you can come to this particular section and allow on premises password change or reset user risk also, that you can enable. So you will get the information from on premises as well. Now, if I'll explore the information from the Microsoft Learn, it says the risky user report allow you to review risky sign-ins and flag each one as either safe or compromised based on the results of an investigation and the information provided by the console. So our answer is going to be simple. The risky user report in the Microsoft Entra ID protection is going to be the right answer. Now, the next question is, you have a Microsoft 365 E5 subscription that uses Microsoft Defender for Identity, and you need to download a Defender for Identity detailed alert report. So in which format you will get the report? So now if I'll go to that place, that's the place from where we can find the identity related reports, and we can select any of this report that you would like to download. There we are getting download option. The moment you click on download option, definitely it contains a lot of tables or attributes, so it should be logically in a data store kind, so maybe XLS. So yes, now if I'll explore the Microsoft documents, it says each Defender for Identity security alerts includes the alert title, description, evidence, and it gives you Microsoft Excel download option. So if I see the extension list, XLSX is the extension of Microsoft Excel. So the right answer is going to be this. Now, you have a Microsoft 365 subscription that uses Microsoft Defender for Cloud, and you have a lab environment that uses an IP address range of 14.38.2.0/24. Now you receive multiple alerts from the lab environment. You need to remove all alerts that originate from the lab environment network, and the solution must meet the following requirement. Means automatically close all future alerts from the lab environment and minimize administrative efforts. Very simple. Either we have to do it manually because ask is to create it automatically. So suppression rule is the approach, or you can say option, that we must implement to automatically close all the alerts related to that particular network or the lab environment. So if I look for the answer, yes, I'm getting this suppression rule option. That would be the right option. But let's explore how we can do and from where you can check it out. So right now you are in Defender for Cloud and you can see these all are the alerts. And top of this alert, we are getting this option called suppression rule that we can create, and automatically all the alerts will get suppressed as per your given conditions. Now, even I read the Microsoft documents, it says when a single alert is not interesting or relevant, you can manually dismiss it, or alternatively use suppression rule to automatically dismiss it. So right answer is going to be suppression. Now the next one is, you have an Azure subscription that uses Microsoft Defender for Cloud. You review security alerts in Defender for Cloud and notice a potential unauthorized use of credential access. You need to respond to and take the necessary step to remediate the alert. Which action should you perform in the Defender for Cloud dashboard? So now, if you can see, we got an alert. As you can see, we are on Defender for Cloud. We went to the security alert, and from the security alert section, we went to the investigation and then take action. There you are getting mitigate threat option. And if you read it clearly, it says, follow the instruction on how to protect your storage account against blob hunting. It depends on what alert you are getting. So accordingly, you will get the alerts. Now, if I'll come and read that, it says mitigate the threat action provides you with the manual remediation step for the security alerts. So my answer should be mitigate the threat. So mitigate the threat is the right option. Now the next one is, your company uses Microsoft Defender for Cloud and you need to create a Defender for Cloud workflow automation. What should you create first? So if you remember, whenever we are going to create Microsoft Defender for Cloud workflow automation, all this workflow automation is designed to work with the logic app. So if you can see from this snapshot, we are trying to create one workflow automation. Once I came to the action area, if you see, it is asking you to provide logic app name. So logic app, I would say it's a orchestration service, which gives you declarative approach to define your requirements or the action plan and connect it so it will work in the given direction. So here the ask is, you need to create a Defender for Cloud workflow automation, and what is the first thing that you will create and what should you create first? So the answer should be logic app. Let's explore. Workflow automation in Defender for Cloud can trigger logic app on a security alerts. So that clearly mentioned in a Microsoft Learn document. So our right answer is going to be a logic app. Now the next question is, you have a Microsoft 365 subscription that uses Microsoft Defender for Endpoint and contains a device named Device 1. Device 1 triggered a high severity alert. You need to review the events that occurred before the alert was triggered. What should you use and what should you do in the Microsoft Defender portal? From the device space, select the Go Hunt, or from the device space, select the Timeline tab, or from the Microsoft Defender portal, query for device 1 in advanced hunting. It's very logical. The ask is, device 1 triggered a high severity alert, and we need to review event that occurred before the alert was triggered. So it's very simple. The timeline is going to tell you, because timeline keeps the track of every execution or whatever is happening on the device. So now if I'll come to this place, this is what the timeline that we can have. So right now it's a timeline of one particular device. So I just opened the device and there I got the timeline tab. Once I clicked on the timeline, there we are getting the complete list. Like what happened, on which date and what time. So we will have clear visibility what actually event happened to that device. Now, even I'll go and explore the Microsoft document. It says you can review the events that occurred before the high severity alert was triggered by selecting the timeline tab. That's the simple answer. Okay, so the answer is going to be from the device space, select the timeline tab. Now, the next one is you manage Microsoft Sentinel for 20 customers. Each customer has its own Microsoft Sentinel workspace. Now, you plan to use multiple workspace to view in the Microsoft Sentinel, and you need to identify which Microsoft Sentinel features you can use in multiple workspace view. What can you use? Incident, analytics, and hunting, or incidents and analytics only, or incident and threat intelligence only, or incidents only. So now if I'll go to that place here, because we have 20 customers and each one is using different one. So here we just need to come to the Sentinel, you can say service, all the Sentinel, which is in different location or the different workspace. You just need to pick all, and there you will get the option called view incident. So you can view the incidents from one single place. Now, if I go and read the Microsoft document reference, it says when you open Microsoft Sentinel, you are presented with a list of all workspaces to which you have access rights, and selecting the same of a single workspace will bring you into that workspace. So to choose the multiple workspace, select all the corresponding checkbox and then select view incident, which will show. So the right answer should be incidents only. Now the next one is you have a Microsoft Sentinel workspace. You need to investigate incidents by using Microsoft Sentinel. What is the maximum age of the incident that can be investigated? Okay. So now if I'll come to this place and try to understand the logic, the Sentinels are going to collect their log and store it in a log analytics workspace. Log analytics stores their data into the table, and if you can see by default, the table has 30 days retention. And that's the primary reason where Microsoft says that Sentinel currently supports the investigation of incidents up to 30 days old. Right? Now, if you worked with the Sentinel and log analytics workspace, you must be thinking like, hey, this date can be changed. Yes, but that is explicit environment. We are talking about the default and the supported service. The question is based on that. So we have to stick with this. And it's going to be 30 days. Now, if I can see, the right answer is going to be 30 days. Now, the next question is, you have a Microsoft Sentinel workspace and an Azure virtual machine named VM1. You open an investigation graph for the incident. What does the investigation graph shows if you hover on VM1? Perfect. And let's see what happens. So that's basically incident graph. And there we got the victim PC. And now I need to explore or just over the, you can say over on the victim PC or the virtual machine that you're getting at this place. So it is, if you can see what it is listing, entire processing, whatever is going on that virtual machine. So if you have experience, you can easily find the answer. If I can see the last 5 security events, no. The network security group, no. The ports open on the VM, no. The processes running on the VM, yes. This is what we have experienced. So now if I'll go to this place and read it, it says the investigation graph enables analysts to ask the right questions for each investigation, and the investigation graph helps you to understand the scope of identity, the root cause of potential security threat by correlating relevant data with the involved entity. So for example, if you hover mouse over the Azure virtual machine, you will get the list of running processes on that virtual machine. So the right answer is going to be the processes running on VM1. Now the next question is, you have a Microsoft Sentinel workspace and a playbook named Playbook 1. You need to ensure that you can manually run Playbook 1 from an incident investigation, and the solution must ensure that Playbook 1 is available from actions on the incident information window. So Playbook, as we know, this is the automation and instructions that you have kept it inside the logic app. Now we have to execute this playbook manually from the incident information window. So let's see how it looks like. So right now we are into the incident, and there you can see these are the list or you can say alert or incident we are getting. Now if I have to execute the playbook, there we are getting this three dot, and we can just click on run playbook, and you need to pick the playbook that you want to execute. This is how manually you will do it. Otherwise, while creating the analytics role, you can just define if it detects, or maybe explicitly you can go and create workflow automation. There you can say if such incidents occurs, this playbook can be triggered. But this is how manually we are going to trigger it. That's the ask. So now if I'll go and read the Microsoft document from learn, so it says the playbook received the incident object including entities and alerts using such things. Trigger allow playbook to attach automation rules so it can be triggered when an incident is created. That's automated. Now here the second paragraph says updating the playbook to use the alert trigger is advisable for playbooks that need to be run on alert manually from the Microsoft Sentinel portal. So the answer is going to be update the playbook 1 to use the incident trigger. Now you have a Microsoft 365 E5 subscription and an Azure subscription. You use Microsoft Sentinel with the following data connector: Microsoft Entra ID, Microsoft Entra ID Protection, Microsoft 365, Microsoft Defender for Office 365. So from Microsoft Sentinel, you create an automation rule named Rule 1. And you need to configure an incident provider condition for Rule 1. So which two incident provider can you specify in the condition? And each correct answer presents the complete solution. So let's see. This is very straightforward. So when you create automation rule in the Microsoft Sentinel, you can include an incident provider condition. And this incident provider condition can have equal or does not equal condition. And you can specify that following incident provider like Microsoft Sentinel, Microsoft 365 Defender, or select all. So here the ask is very simple. Who will provide you the incident? Now if I try to compare it with the answer, Microsoft Entra ID, Microsoft Entra ID Protection, Microsoft Sentinel, Microsoft Defender for Office 365, Microsoft 365. Does Microsoft 365 generate incident? No. Does Microsoft Entra ID Protection generates incident? No. Does Microsoft Entra ID creates incident? No. So what would be the right answer? Sentinel and Microsoft Defender as per this logic. And from this recommendation reference, we will also get to know. So the right answer is going to be Microsoft Sentinel and Defender for Office 365. Now, the next point is you have a Microsoft Sentinel workspace. You need to create a playbook that will run automatically in a response to a Microsoft Sentinel incident. What should you create first? It's very simple. We talked many times. It should be, as you can see here in this particular diagram, the moment you are going to create a runbook, the thing you need to create is what? Playbook, and playbook is what? Logic app. So you must have a logic app that you're going to associate with it. So the right answer should be logic app. Even you take the reference, it says Microsoft Sentinel integrates with the logic app. So the first thing that we need to create is the logic app. Okay, so the next one is you have an Azure subscription that uses Microsoft Sentinel, and you plan to create a playbook that will be triggered when an incident is created in Microsoft Sentinel. It's very simple. It's moreover, or it's 100% automation. So it says like, hey, whenever the incident got created, immediately it should start taking action, whatever you decided. So what should you use to implement the automated trigger action? We discussed already. So the right answer is going to be playbook, because whenever incident comes, playbook is already there. All the actions are already defined. We just need to connect it and automatically it will get triggered. So right answer is going to be logic app. Okay, the next question is you have an Azure subscription that contains a resource group named RG1 and the Microsoft Sentinel workspace. In RG1, you created a playbook named Play1. You need to ensure that the Azure Security Insight Identity can run play one, and the solution must follow the principle of least privilege. What should you do? It's very simple. It's about the permission management. So the moment you went to assign a, you can say, playbook to your incident, either manually or automatically, you must have right permission with you. If you don't have, it won't get listed while assignment. If I explore the document clearly says Microsoft Sentinel must be granted explicit permission to run playbooks based on the incident triggers, whether manually or the automation rules. If a playbook on the drop down list unavailable, it means that Microsoft Sentinel does not have permission to that use that playbooks. So to do that, what you need to do, you must delegate Microsoft Sentinel automation contributor role to the Azure Security Insight identity on the resource group. Then only you can use it. We do have other approaches as well, and that's the reason it's not recommended to go and explicitly create a playbook in Azure before creating your workflow, or you can say automation workflow. It's better to create a playbook or logic app directly from the Sentinel, so it automatically creates the connection between them, assign the permission, so you can easily trigger it from there. But anyway, as for this, now the right answer is going to be delegate the Microsoft Sentinel automation contributor role on RG1. Now, the next one is you have a Microsoft 365 E5 subscription. You plan to create a Microsoft Defender XDR hunting query to identify users that have been affected by clicking a suspicious URL. You need to create a detection rule that will mark the users as compromised. Which two properties should you include in the rule? And each answer presents part of the solution. This is about the KQL, because here we are using the hunting. So this hunting word means that you need to go and explicitly, or you can say proactively, you need to write Custo query language and do your findings as per the requirement or the demand. There are a few things that you need to consider. It depends. All the informations are stored in your data store, which is in raw format. So you must aware about the properties or attributes which is associated with that object. So here our ask is, what we need to find, you need to create a detection rule that will mark that user is compromised, and for that, what you can say we should select in our query, or what properties we need to pick. So if you read the Microsoft documents, it will clearly mention the account UPN and the report ID that you need to mention, because it's about the user. So with the help of account UPN, we'll get to know, the report ID will provide you the detailed information about that. So that's the important. Now the next one is, you have a Microsoft 365 E5 subscription and you are using Microsoft Defender portal. You need to create a custom detection rule by using a hunting query. So which two columns should the query return? And each correct answer presents the part of the question. You already saw the answer. So anyway, a report ID and timestamp is going to be the right answer. Again, it's all about exploring the table and becoming familiar with the options. So if I'll explore that, it says to create a custom detection rule, the query must return the following columns: timestamp and report ID for this scenario. And this is about, you can say, custom detection rule. So for this custom detection rule, you must define the timestamp and the report ID. Okay, so the next question is, you have a Microsoft 365 E5 subscription that contains 3 devices named Device 1, Device 2, and Device 3. The subscription uses Microsoft Defender for endpoint. Okay, fine. Now we are performing an investigation by using this query, and this query is trying to fetch the information from the device log events, where action type is logon failed and summarizing device name logon type initial, initiating process command line, where logon failure is greater than 3 and projecting these attributes, which is logon failure device name, logon type, initiating process command line, and then sort by logon failure in descending order. Now the ask is, you need to exclude device 3 from the query. Okay. So for that, we must understand the operator that we can use in KQL. And if I'll go to this explanation in equal to is the not equal to operator, and equal is equal to operator, equal to until till is the equal to without a case sensitivity operator. Has is used when the right hand side RSH and the left hand side is LHS is being used. Okay, fine. Apart from that, if you'll go to the KQL operator, you will find some more operators. But in this particular scenario, we have to use not equal to operator because we want to exclude some device. So if I see the answer there, we can see where device not equal to, we are able to see, and that is equal to and tilde. So there we can go and check it out. This is going to be your right answer. Now the next one is, you have an Azure subscription that contains a Microsoft Sentinel workspace and you develop 3 hunting queries. You need to ensure that the hunting query run each time you open the hunting blade. Great. And that's not complicated. As we know, this is the moment you go to the KQL query or maybe the hunting, there we are getting the favorite option and that can be executed. So here you can see that's the place where you're going to write the hunting. And as you can see, you can mark it as a favorite, so it can be executed. So right answer should be the favorite one. So query saved into the favorite automatically run each time the hunting blade is accessed. That's great. Now, if you have a Microsoft Sentinel workspace that has the following data connector configured, sign-in logs, audit logs, and security alerts, you need to create a query that will look for an IP address across the 3 configured data tables and return the matching row. Which operator should you use? Extend, JSON, lookup, and union. So it's very simple. There are 2 ways to merge this. Either you can go with the union and join. So you have to be very specific about the ask. It says, hey, you need to create a query that look up for an IP address across the 3 configured data tables. So we have to look from all these 3. So we are going to use union. If I say joining can also be used, but that is for the matching. So you can see for the joining operator, merge the row of 2 tables to form a new table by matching the specified column value of each table. And even inside that, we have multiple conditions, left entire, right entire. So that's going to be slightly different. Union straightforward is going to merge multiple, connect multiple table and make a query and fetch the information from there. Okay, so the next question is, you have a Microsoft Sentinel workspace and you have the following query that we are using to get the result. Like we are querying security event table where time generated is 7 days ago, where event ID is 4625 and summarizing it with target account. A requirement is what? You need to use the query as a hunting query and the solution must generate result deltas. Okay, it's very simple. So if I want to get this result into delta, then we should remove this time generated. It should not be limited with this particular time generated properties. So the answer should be, we should remove this time generated. Let's explore what Microsoft document says. It says delta value for hunting query cannot be calculated for queries with the hard coded time filters. That's the point. And that's the reason you need to remove the time filters should be removed. That's great. If you will go with other answers where other things like if I'll try to remove the summarize count, that is not going to meet our requirement. So in the as per this scenario, the time filters should be removed. So right answer should be where time generated is 7 days ago, that should be removed. Now the next question is, you have an Azure subscription that contains a user named user1 and a Microsoft Sentinel workspace. You create a query that looks for failed sign-in for user1. So you need to save the key finding from the result. The solution must ensure that you use the results in investigation graph. What should you create? So as you can see here, we are getting this result. And if I want to get this into the investigation graph, then we have to add it as a bookmark. And the right answer should be bookmark. Correct. Even this document says bookmark is the Microsoft Sentinel can help you to hunt for threats by preserving the query and you ran in a Microsoft Sentinel along with the query result that you deem relevant. Now the next point is you have an Azure subscription that contains a Microsoft Sentinel workspace, and you have the following query. We are checking Azure activity and summarizing it by the operation name and then time generated 4 hours ago. Okay. Now what is the requirement? You need to update the KQL query to show graphical output. That's very simple. To get the graphical output, we must use render. This render, you can say function or method, will help you to present your data into the graphical approach. So the right answer is going to be render. That's the operator that we need to use. Now, the next one is you have an Azure subscription that use Microsoft Sentinel. You need to create a report that will visualize alert information over time. What should you create first? The ask is what? You need to create a report that will visualize information over the time. Workbook. So there we can go inside the Sentinel. We have workbook section, and within the workbook section, you can visualize your data like this. So the right answer should be workbook. Now, the next one is you have a Microsoft Sentinel workspace. You plan to add a workbook to Microsoft Sentinel. You create a workbook query. You need to display the query result in a time chart. Which keyword should you include in the query? Definitely, if I want to see any result into the chart, we have to go with the render, which we just talked about it. So the answer should be render. Okay, so the next one is you have a Microsoft 365 E5 subscription that uses Microsoft Defender for cloud apps. You need to be notified if a user sign in from a risky IP address, and the solution must ensure the user is also notified. Which type of policy should you create? A cloud discovery, anomaly detection, a session policy, access policy, or an activity policy? So can you see the activity policy, because that is something related to the user activity and it should get notified to the admin and user. So we need to create one activity policy from the cloud apps where we can notify the respective team members. Okay, the next one is you have a Microsoft 365 E5 subscription that includes a user named user1, and you need to ensure all emails sent to user1, including malicious email, is excluded from filtering by Microsoft Defender for Office 365. What should you configure? We need to configure quarantine policies, SecOps mailbox, or a tenant allow block list, or enhanced filtering. So a SecOps mailbox policy is dedicated mailbox that is used by security team to collect and analyze unfiltered messages, so both good or bad. So it's very straightforward. We will go with the SecOps. Now the next one is you have a Microsoft 365 E5 subscription that uses Microsoft Defender for cloud apps. You need to create a Defender for cloud apps policy that will generate alerts based on a trainable classifier. Which type of policy should you create? It's going to be file policy, because the ask is what? You need to create a Defender for cloud app policy that will generate alerts based on the trainable classifier. So you can see here we do get this option, and the trainable classifier can be created with the help of this file policy. Even the Microsoft document says file policy allow you to enforce a wide range of automated process by using the cloud provider. Like API policy can be set to provide continuous compliance scans, legal, e-discovery, task, data loss prevention for sensitive content, and that can be shared publicly. So this is going to be the right. Okay, the next one is you have a Microsoft 365 E5 subscription that contains a user named user1. You need to prevent user1 from sending more than 20 emails messages per day. What should you configure in Microsoft Defender for Office 365? Let's see the console. So if you can see, we are inside the policy and rules of Defender for 365, and there we have threat policy. Inside the threat policy, we do have anti-spam policy, and that we are going to create. There you're getting the limit section where we can limit that this user cannot send more than this mail messages. So here, this is going to be a straightforward answer. anti-spam policy, and this is the reference of Microsoft documents that you can explore. Now, you have a Microsoft 365 E5 subscription that uses Microsoft Defender for endpoint. You deploy an app named App1. App1 clears logs from an application server, and when App1 runs, it triggers a Microsoft Defender alert. So you need to prevent App1 from triggering alerts, and the solution must ensure that other will still trigger alerts. What should you do? So it's very simple. We need to suppress it. So the right answer is going to be a suppression rule we need to create. Now the next one is, you have a Microsoft Sentinel playbook named Playbook 1. Playbook 1 is triggered when a new Microsoft Sentinel incident is created. Now you create a custom near real-time analytics rule named NRT Rule 1. You need to ensure that NRT Rule 1 can use playbook. Again, it's very simple. We need to get a, you can say, connection, or we just need to add this automation playbook. So for playbook that are triggered by an incident creation and receive incident as their inputs. So when Microsoft Sentinel incident triggers, so create an automation rule and define a run playbook action in the rule to trigger the playbook. It's going to be straightforward, even for NRT or the non-NRT. So add automation rule to the NRT is the right answer. Now you have a Microsoft Sentinel workspace. You plan to create a watch list of high value assets, and you need to create a list of the assets that you will upload. How should you format the list? CSV, DOCX, XLS, or XML? Very simple. If you'll go to the watch list, right now you can see at home, Microsoft Sentinel, and that's a watch list. And if I try to upload from the local system, there we are getting only this format, which is CSV. So very simple, right answer should be CSV. Okay, the next question is, you have a Microsoft Sentinel workspace and you create the following analytics query. Here, if you can see that we created two variables, one is sunburn and second one is supernova. There we created MD5 asses, and there you can see IAM file event where the condition is target file is this sunburn and supernova. Now we're extending it with this information. Now the ask is, you need to add the query to the workspace. Okay, so this is something related to ASIM, and this is what? This is something advanced security information model. So if you have to do, you can say ASIM parsers, in that case, first you need to deploy this advanced security information model in your environment, then only you can do such parsing. And that's the reason the ask is, what is the first thing that we have to do to execute this? In that case, our answer should be deploy an advanced security information model parser first. Yep. Okay, so the next question is, you have a Microsoft Sentinel workspace that contains the following query. And if you see, it is trying to fetch the information from Office activity table, where the time generated is ago 7 hours, where operation not contains mail, and project time generated user ID operation, office workload, record type, resource ID, and sort by time generated descending nulls and last. So the query filters the Office activity table to remove results that refer to mail and project selected information from the table in the descending order. Correct? You need to create a custom parser named parser1 that will run the query. Okay. So what should you do first? Fine, it's very simple. Again, if you're trying to create any parser, there should not be any time constraint. So it's going to be very simple. We need to remove this time generated in a parser. That should not required. That should not be there. Even if I'll go and explore the Microsoft document, it clearly says a parser should not include a filter by the time. So that's very simple. The answer should be remove where time generated greater than ago 7 hours. Now, the final question, you have a Microsoft Sentinel workspace. You deploy a new security device that is connected to a workspace by using the common event format data connector. You need to develop a custom parser to interpret the data from the device. what should you do first? Okay, so let's explore. So it says, to build effective advanced security information model, AISM parser, you need a representative set of logs, which in most cases will require setting up the source system and connecting it to the Microsoft Sentinel. So if you don't have a source device available, cloud pay-as-you-go service let you deploy many devices from the development and testing. And mapping the source event field to the identified schema in the third step in creating a custom parser. So you must first collect the simple data. And this is going to be the right answer. So there we go. That's going to be the right answer for this one. Okay, so we explored this 50 question, and as you have seen, the most of the questions are something related to the Sentinel, KQL, and XDR. Now, if we logically consider this entire SC-200, it has been divided in this three part only. The first part of this course is about XDR and Defender services. The last part of this course is about Sentinel, and in between we have KQL. And that's the reason your entire question will be moving around these three topics only. Okay, so thank you so much for joining, and see you in next video.